Who dares disturb the peace of the Avatar?
It's me, Aang.
Is it not customary to bow before your elders? And to avert your eyes? And hop on one leg?
Remaking something can be difficult. Retelling a classic or timeless story is always difficult because on top of being good, they also have to justify their own existence. Superhero movies and Disney movies in particular are a victim of this curse because a lot of the time they have existing source material, so they're always met with the daunting task of how much do you keep versus how much do you change. Lion King's remake was okay, but it was basically just a higher budget, watered down version of the original with less expressive reactions and less striking animation. I don't know anybody who's crazy about this movie, and I definitely don't know anybody who likes it better than the original. On the opposite end, something like Lorax's remake was so different that the only real thing they had in common was the name. Does that make it good?
That's a woman?
Well, if nothing else, it stands out from the original. The purpose of a remake should be to either adapt it for a modern audience that wouldn't have watched it in its original format, or retell it from an angle that we didn't see in the original version. And with accepting the task of remaking something also comes the unavoidable tightrope. Trying to reinvent a wheel to a car that's already working just fine. If you change too much, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but if it doesn't work, it risks tarnishing the legacy of the original. But change too little and the audience will feel like they wasted their time and just wish that they watched the original. Anyway, what was I talking about? So this may come as a surprise to you guys, but I really love Avatar: The Last Airbender. This show came out over 20 years ago and is still to me the greatest show ever made. An opinion a lot of others seem to share. When it first came out, it pushed boundaries about what an animated series could get away with talking about, exploring themes of war, genocide, grief, colonialism, history, culture, as well as studies of character growth, martial arts, spirituality, and philosophy. It's a show that keeps getting better with age as it continues to hold up to the ideas it set for itself all these years later without ever watering itself down or talking down to its audience. But you already knew about all of that. Even if you're not subscribed, you probably still know because to this day, it's the #3 highest rated multi-season show on IMDb. Which really makes me think, maybe I should check out The Wire. But also, what could a different form of presentation offer to a show like this? Avatar: The Last Airbender could be great as a live-action series, given it's put in the right hands of people who know how to do martial arts choreography, how to compose shots and write dialogue, and if it still keeps the bones of the original story, it could be a good little adaptation. I don't believe it could ever eclipse the quality of its animated counterpart, even if I was given a blank check and the best talent in the fields that I had previously mentioned, but I do think it could become the best version of a live-action adaptation that the story could reasonably be. They already tried the live-action format before. It was so bad that it's an ongoing joke in the fans that there's no live-action movie in Ba Sing Se, but they did still try it. I guess we might have to change that to plural here soon, but let's not put the cart before the ostrich horse. So now we have the Netflix series, which began production well after Shyamalan, but because it left that bad of a taste in everyone's mouths, people were still pretty understandably guarded. But after we found out they were working directly with the series creators, people were a little bit more warm to the idea. Until we find out that they left due to unspecified creative differences. A red flag on its own to be sure, but the fact that they would even bother reaching out to the original creators shows that a little more care would go into this, right? I mean, they got actors that are accurate to the cultures they portray in the show this time, and they're actually saying the names right. God, is that really our bar right now? Before I talk about Season 2, I'll quickly recap the broad strokes of what my thoughts were about Season 1. A lot of my character criticisms aren't going to be so much on the cast members themselves. I know a lot of people have had some thoughts on a few of them, but ultimately, I think they all did fine with the roles they were given. I would, however, like to highlight Paul Sun-Hyung Lee as Iroh, who does a great job capturing the spirit of the original while still having a performance stand out on its own.
I've come fully prepared. All the tea I need.
I don't need a babysitter.
How about a friend?
It doesn't feel like he's trying to be Mako's Iroh or Greg Baldwin's. It feels like he's trying to be his own Iroh, which is probably the best I could have hoped for. Most of the other cast was fine, but nothing really to write home about. Where most adaptations try to Flanderize what a lot of these characters are like to get a good feel of their role in the stories because of the short runtime, they seem to reserve these characters a lot more, which makes them feel more grounded, but also a lot more flat. I think Sokka cracks maybe 2 jokes the entire season, and Katara, God, she doesn't even have a personality in season 1. They did add in a couple of interesting ideas. Some worked and some didn't. I thought it was interesting that we actually got a scene of Iroh and Ozai on screen together, something we never actually got in either the animated series or even in the latest iteration of the comics. I also like that they make reference to a lot of expansions outside the animated series. Like for example, they actually reference the Mother of Faces from the comics. And they even talk a bit about Avatar Kuruk's legacy, but on the other hand, they also don't really take a lot of time to make any of it meaningful. If you cut it all out, you wouldn't really lose anything, especially since they reintroduced it again in the next season as if you missed it the first time. It just feels like reference for reference sake. Another problem we'll see a lot in the second season, but we'll get to that later. But back to another positive, I also like that the reveal that the unit Zuko was advocating against being thrown onto the front line were revealed to be the crew that would accompany him on his hunt for the Avatar. But I really don't like the lead into it. In the original duel between Zuko and his father, Zuko absolutely refuses to take up arms against him, both to show his inherent love and respect for his father, and to show his genuine remorse for dishonoring him. Whereas in the live-action version, it seems to be more framed like a fight just to show how much Ozai outclasses Zuko. There's a lot of references and choices that are made in the live-action series that worked in the original, but just didn't take the time to make it work in this version. Probably the most offensive case is what they did to Katara.
Techniques.
In the Northern Water Tribe, women aren't allowed to fight.
Aren't allowed? That's not right.
When they get to the Northern Water Tribe, Katara is angry because she's only allowed to train as a healer instead of learning how to fight because in the North, women aren't allowed to be warriors. That conflict worked in the original because it had been building up since episode 1. We see that Katara spent her entire life being underestimated in moments like Sokka's sexism.
What does me being a girl have to do with sewing?
Simple. Girls are better at fixing pants than guys, and guys are better at hunting and fighting and stuff like that. It's just the natural order of things.
We really see her break out of that mold in the episode with Haru. And we also see her struggle with her bending after watching Aang become naturally gifted at it while she struggles to keep up. Every one of those moments added another break in the proverbial wall. The live-action series removes pretty much all of that. Sokka's sexism is gone, which isn't necessarily a bad decision, but it also removes a huge part of his growth as a person. Haru isn't even in the story, so we never get to see Katara become the person who inspires hope in others. And Aang doesn't do any water bending at all in Season 1, so we lose the insecurity that came from watching him accelerate at it.
It would have been wise to have focused on your training during your journey.
The show recreates the payoff while stripping away the buildup that gave it meaning. And that's kind of Season 1 in a nutshell. There's also a few other weird choices like how the Cave of Two Lovers becomes a story about sibling love instead of romantic love. Bumi goes from a goofy old king testing Aang to a bitter old man blaming him for the war. And Roku, weirdly enough, starts acting more like Bumi than Bumi does. Individually, I don't think every one of those changes are terrible, but taken together, they make the story feel really disjointed. Character moments don't feel like natural conclusions of cause and effect, they feel like they're happening because everyone remembers that they were supposed to happen. As a longtime Avatar fan who's watched the show multiple times, I'd like to think I know this show like the back of my hand. I couldn't write a good episode or anything, but I at least know enough to dissect the scene and highlight why certain things about it work. Even trying to judge it as its own story, I don't think those emotional beats land nearly as well because the series keeps skipping the work required to earn them. So, where are we now? Well, since Season 1 ended the same spot that Book 1 did, naturally Season 2 starts where Book 2 started. Although instead of meeting up with General Thung, they just skip straight to Omashu. A little rush, but fine. They escape Omashu with a bunch of refugees, and we see the return of the Kyoshi warriors and Abed the Inventor. Yeah, I know that's not his name, but I'm sorry, that's just Abed.
But now, out here, I can see more clearly, and I believe I've put it all together.
Why does being a librarian make her even hotter? They're keepers of knowledge. She holds the answers to all of our questions, like will you marry me and why are there still libraries?
I'm not gonna go beat by beat on these episodes, but I do want to linger on this part because it does highlight my biggest problem with the season. This season seriously suffers from the idiot problem. There are way too many scenes that only happen because people stop acting as smart as they usually are, ignore information they already know, or conveniently make the exact decision the plot needs them to make.
Anyway, I better get going. I gotta keep up appearances with Long Fang.
Why keep up the act? He knows you know he's lying, right?
Sure. But if I keep doing what he asks, he'll think I'm scared. Because I know that he knows that I know he knows. And that's exactly what I want me to think.
Take the first major plot point. Abed says he's been studying the star charts and wants to share his findings with the Earth King and Ba Sing Se because they think it'll help with the war efforts. Which means the Siwang Desert, gone. Appa's kidnapping, also gone. Now, skipping story arcs isn't automatically a bad thing. The problem is, those stories existed for a reason. In the original, Appa being captured caused a major dilemma with the party because they basically lost their ability to fast travel. They had to get all the way to Ba Sing Se on foot since they couldn't fly wherever they wanted anymore. So when they finally get there, they're basically at the mercy of their caretakers and the kingdom bureaucracy waiting for an audience with the Earth King. But here, they still have Appa. So why are they waiting? Most of this season is spent with Team Avatar getting jerked around while trying to earn an audience with the Earth King, but they literally have a flying bison. Once they're inside the city walls, what's stopping them from flying straight to the palace? In the original, the moment they get Appa back, that's exactly what they do. But let me recompose myself, because I'm only telling half the story so far. On the Fire Nation side of things, Azula makes her way through the Earth Kingdom with Mei and Ty Lee to track down Zuko and Iroh to bring them home. In the original, Azula tells Zuko their father wants him back home too, because he says he's consolidating his allies, but we, the audience, know almost immediately that she's lying and that it's a trap. In the live-action series, we actually see Ozai tell Azula that he wants to bring Zuko home.
I want you to retrieve him.
And do what?
Bring him home. It's time to get our family in order.
Why? I genuinely don't get this one. We spent a ton of time in the Fire Nation last season, and nothing ever suggested that Ozai was having second thoughts. I actually don't mind that Zuko doesn't believe Azula, because Season 1 did establish how desperate he is to earn his father's approval, so that part still tracks. But then, even more baffling, Azula just decides she wants to kill Zuko. Where did that come from? Azula may have always been ruthless in the original, but she wasn't randomly homicidal. She manipulated people because it got her what she wanted.
What is wrong with you?
It's because they haven't made up their minds. They're waiting to see how this is going to end.
What are you talking about?
I can see your whole history in your eyes. You were born with nothing, so you've had to struggle and connive and claw your way to power. But true power, the divine right to rule, is something you're born with. The fact is, they don't know which one of us is going to be sitting on that throne, and which one is going to be bowing down. But I know, and you know. Well?
You've beaten me at my own game.
Don't flatter yourself. You were never even a player.
Even when Mei and Ty Lee eventually betrayed her, it happened because they finally chose someone else over her. Not because Azula tried to make them murder each other for no reason.
Ty Lee, I want you to kill Mei.
What?
Mei, I want you to kill Ty Lee.
What?
I'm gonna count down from 10.
You're joking.
What? And by the time I reach 1, I expect one of you to be dead. Or I'll turn you both into smoldering heaps of ash.
It feels less like a decision that grows naturally from the characters and more like conflict for the sake of conflict. I think a good microcosm of this issue is the scenes with Sokka and Suki. There's a lot of points where Sokka is being closed off to her while also being super protective and cautious around her. This happened in the original too, but when she confronts him about it, they actually talk about it.
Then why are you acting so overprotective?
It's so hard to lose someone you care about. Something happened at the North Pole and I couldn't protect someone. I don't want anything like that to ever happen again.
He may not have given her specifics, but he still says, hey, I went through a lot up north and I don't want to make that same mistake again with you. They're able to find an equilibrium and be more respectful, but here he just doesn't do that. Instead, he just keeps shutting her out, leaving Suki frustrated to go run off and help the rest of the Kyoshi warriors spy on the invading Fire Nation troops, because if Sokka didn't keep being an idiot, the Kyoshi warriors wouldn't have broken off from their group, which means Azula's trio wouldn't be able to ambush and pose as them, and you see the problem here? The story isn't making progress based on character-driven decisions. It's more, this is happening because this needs to happen in order for this to happen. It keeps trying to swing between original ideas and trying to adapt things. There's a good remake in here somewhere, but it keeps removing the setup from the animated series while still expecting the payoff to land because they think people will clap when Sokka drinks the cactus juice.
Drink cactus juice. It'll quench you. Nothing's quenchier. It's the quenchiest.
I understood that reference.
I could see a much better live-action remake where they actually commit to these new ideas and try to retell it in a way that feels organic, so things feel like less of a series of A to Bs and more like Avatar: The Last Airbender.
It's a giant mushroom. Maybe it's friendly.
Like, for example, they do an episode that's kinda like their version of the Tales of Ba Sing Se episode where they're all just kinda hanging out in the city. And they actually show some cool ideas. We see Iroh attending a memorial service for all the soldiers that were killed during his siege on the walls back when he was general. There's even a funny bit where Sokka and Toph are arguing and they wander into the haiku club by accident like how he did in the original. But they add to it because Sokka and Toph keep arguing, but they're forced to do it in haiku.
Yes! I care about my friends. I care about you. And you are one. Oh man, how many syllables am I on? Was that?
I know it doesn't make sense, but it's still funny and it builds on the idea the original had. But it keeps falling back on other things that just don't work. In the original series, one of the most important moments for Zuko's entire character arc comes when Appa is captured. Instead of using him as bait to capture the Avatar, he quietly frees Appa instead. It's the first truly selfless thing he does, and it's such a massive shift in who he was up to that point that he literally comes down with a fever and spirals into an identity crisis-induced fever dream. Now, if you've been paying attention up to this point, you're probably thinking, wait, but you said the whole Appa storyline was cut. So if Zuko didn't free him, then why did he start spiraling? And that is an excellent question. It's because he walked by Aang while he was meditating into the spirit world and he doesn't do anything. And that somehow gets him to question everything about himself.
That's it?
Yup, that's it. Just like I've been saying this whole time, they try to make Zuko's emotional struggle pay off, but they remove the moment where it's actually earned. You're trying to tell me that an uncharacteristic act of compassion is just as much grounds for an existential crisis as not starting a fight when you wanted to? I can tell you as someone who used to work in retail that not wanting to start a fight does not in fact give you that kind of existential crisis, no matter what my therapist tells me. Anyway, I could talk about how they try to retread the library scene so they could kind of find out about the comet and the eclipse, even though I think Abed already kind of told them. I could talk about how they tried to do Appa missing again, which causes the whole team to fight and break up, like it's the third act of a bad rom-com. Or how the team up with Iroh feels abrupt and random, or how Long Feng was basically reduced to Azula's bumbling henchman. But really, by this point, I was just checked out. This was just too much. It's kind of funny that not once but twice in a row now, the live-action remake of Avatar The Last Airbender comes right off the heels of the live-action One Piece remake, because One Piece basically does what I wish this did. It trims the fat where it needs to, but it understands why the important moments in the original worked. It changes things without breaking the chain of cause and effect that made those moments meaningful in the first place. I really wish we could have gotten that here. I know they already announced that the third and final season is in production, and the chance of them sticking the landing isn't 0, but it definitely feels closer to 0 than 100. I genuinely want this show to succeed because it constantly feels like it's almost breaking free from its own mediocrity. Every now and then it stumbles into a good idea, only to immediately undercut it by trying to recreate something from the original that no longer fits the story it's telling. At this point, more than anything, I just wanted to pick a lane and commit to it. Either tell your own version of Avatar with confidence, or try to be at least more faithful in your adaptation, because trying to do both at the same time just hasn't been working. So to the live-action creators, I have a message from you from our Lord and Savior Iroh.
It's time for you to look inward and begin asking yourself the big questions. Who are you? And what do you want?
And that was my thoughts on Season 2. What did you think? I know I don't usually do video essays on this channel, but I thought I'd try something new. Did you like the last 2 seasons? Are you excited for the 3rd season? Or are you hoping that it gets the Amber Island Players ending? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video.